All right, factoring trinomials. Um, so trinomials are written in the form a x squared plus bx plus c. And what I mean by like the a and the b and the c are just numbers. So I've kind of written an example underneath here, like 2x squared minus 4x plus 7. Sorry, pause the video if you haven't caught up to where I'm at. Just kind of write that down. Okay, and then the first thing we're going to do is factor trinomials where a is going to be equal to 1. So instead of having like a 2 out front there, it would just be nothing out front. So that's the kind of trinomial that we're going to factor first. Okay, so again, pause if you need to catch up to where I'm at. Um, so what we have here now is a is equal to 1. That just means there's nothing out front. This is going to be the simpler of the two kinds, and we're going to handle it just a little bit different. What we're going to do again, just like with difference of squares, is you are going to make bracket, bracket, just like that. We want this to be, that's what it means to factor, is to come up with two different terms that make up this term that you can just split it into, right? It's going to be handy for things we're going to do later on, by the way. It's not just totally pointless. Yeah, so the way this is going to work is we're going to look at 15, the number on the end, and 8. Look at those two numbers. Now, what you're going to write over on the side here is that we're going to say it needs to, the two numbers that I'm looking for need to multiply to 15 and positive 15. And they need to add to 8. Okay, so what two numbers, that's what you're going to ask yourself, what two numbers multiply to 15 and add to 8? So if you can't think of it, this one you probably got it in your head already. But what if I'd write them down over here? So just two numbers that multiply to 15 first is what I'd start with. So maybe 1 and 15. I'd write that down first. Well, 1 and 15, yeah, they multiply to 15, but there's no way I can ever add to 8 from that. I can't go 1 plus 15 to get to 8. I can't go 1 minus 15 to get to 8. I'll never get there. But what about the numbers 8 and 5? There's 8 and 5. What am I doing? 3 and 5. What about the numbers 3 and 5? Well, yeah, that's looking promising, right? They both multiply to 15, and if you add them together just with positive signs, they would get you to 8 as well to add. So what we're going to do down here is we're just going to put an x and an x. It's always going to be that when you have just one out front for the a value. It's just going to be x and an x. And then we got to figure out, okay, what number goes in there and what number goes in there. Well, that's what we did over here. So it's going to be a 3 and a 5. I could have went the other way too. It really doesn't matter. It could have been 5 and 3. That doesn't matter at all which one's which. Now, the next thing you got to do is figure out, okay, what are my signs going to be? Is it going to be like, plus and minus or anything like that? Well, this one's pretty straightforward because they're both plus signs, right? So they're both going to be plus. So now I can see positive 5 and 3. Yeah, that gives me positive 15. Positive 5 and positive 3 add to positive 8. So we're good there. And then that'd be it. So that's how we factored that one. All right, let's do another one. Let's do x squared minus x plus 12. Scratch that. We'll make that minus 12. Okay, so we need to factor that. So we're going to go bracket, bracket. Every time you're going to do that. And you're going to put an x and you're going to put an x. The harder part here is we got to figure out what these two numbers are. But that's going to look the same every time. So it needs to multiply to 12. It needs to add to, well, there's really just a 1 out front here, right? 1. So it's add to negative 1, really. So what I would do is write down, okay, what are numbers that multiply to 12? Well, 12 and 1 multiply to 12. But again, there's no way I can add 12 and 1 to get to 1, right? But 3 and 4, what about that? 3 and 4. Yeah, they multiply to 12, and that's looking kind of promising. There's only one difference between 3 and 4, so I can probably get to 1 pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is write down, okay, 3 and 4. Now we got to figure out what our signs are going to be. So our sign, this thing needs to multiply to negative 12. So one of these things needs to be positive and one needs to be negative. So let's do it this way. What if I put a negative 3 and a positive 4 in there? I say, okay, well, negative 3 and positive 4. Yeah, that gets me the negative 12. But positive 4, so 4 minus 3, that would give me positive 1, not negative 1. So I obviously just got these signs backwards, so just swap them. So this has to be negative and this will be a positive. And that's it. That's our final answer. Okay, so let's do one last one here before we move on to the next concept. But I'd like you to try this one on your own. So in a second, pause the video, figure it all out, and then I'll do it after that. So go ahead and pause the video now. All right, so here's what I would do. So I'd go bracket, bracket, x and an x. And then I know my numbers that I'm looking for need to multiply to 10, add to 3. So what about 5 and 2? Looks kind of promising, right? So let's put down 5 and 2. And now I know it needs to multiply to a negative number. So one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. What if I made this one negative and this one positive? Well, okay, so then I've got that they multiply to negative 10, so we're good there. But if I go 5 minus 2, or negative 2 plus 5, same thing, I get positive 3, not negative 3. So I just got these signs backwards. So let's go positive 2 and negative 5. And that'd be it. Okay, so let's move on to the next concept. Actually, you know what? Again, I find this concept is kind of a sticking point for students, so I'm going to make it its own video. So I'm going to end that one there.